Welcome back to Mountain Connections. Right now we are going to check in with Nexus IT. They give us monthly tech tips all year round, but right now they are going to focus on business productivity during COVID-19, especially with most of your workforce working from home. Earl, Foote, and Travis Gunn are joining me via the phone and Skype. Welcome to the show today.
Hey, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much, both Travis and Earl. Travis is joining us via the phone, and Earl we can see on Skype, of course. Now, when you think about workers going home to work, there's more to consider. It's not quite that simple. So let's just start out talking about productivity issues. What are some things that corporations and companies can do to make sure they have great productivity if they can during this time?
You know, that's a complex question. There's a lot of potential things that we can talk about there, right? But I think we're finding right now that a lot of businesses in this new dynamic, many were not prepared. If we're going to be honest and frank, I think most of us never really expected to have a situation like this where we would have to send all or most of our workforce home and try to continue operating business as usual and be productive during this time period. And so we're seeing a lot of companies bump up against challenges because there wasn't planning or forethought put into the situation. And those challenges are not only technological, but there's also a lot of operational and culture type of challenges. I think that, and we'll get into the technology a little bit more and what organizations can do from a technology perspective to be more productive. But I think one of the biggest things that we've seen organizations face at this point is that perhaps they didn't have a culture, an enabling culture of autonomy that would allow their teams to work from anywhere in the world and to be productive in that process without being micromanaged or having somebody over their shoulder all the time. And so having having a culture that was already part of an organization that allowed people to be independent, that potentially, for us, for example, as Nexus, this has been part of our culture for a long time, and most of our team actually spends most of their days in the field and has the flexibility of working from different locations, different offices, or home offices when needed. And so a long time ago, we established things within our culture that would enable people to be, first of all, to lead themselves or teams that they're in charge of, or to be able to make decisions on the fly that would enable them to offer the best possible experience to our clientele. And we've also always had some incentive and accountability in place that that monitors per se activity to make sure that we are staying productive and we're providing the best possible results for our clients and for our team. And at the same time doing that without micromanaging or being over people's shoulders. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing companies go through, besides the technology challenges, and we can certainly get into those topics as well.
Now, there's many technology challenges that businesses also have to consider. Do their employees have high-speed internet? Is there secure connections? What about conferencing? You have maybe video conferencing or Zoom, or are all these things in place for companies? Let's dig into what they need to have, and perhaps if they aren't so accustomed to having their employees work from home, how can they institute this in a timely way to get it done?
Well, let me start with this a little bit, because I'm actually experiencing one of those struggles myself right now. I actually have high-speed internet at my house, and for some reason today my internet is actually being throttled, which is causing poor signal, which has me actually calling in over the phone. So these are things that are kind of the intricacies that you will see. from a technology perspective, right? Just day to day. And I've worked at home for near 10 years. And these things do happen, unfortunately, but there are things that we can put in place that can help us be more effective, right? Good internet connections, good solid routers for security, right? There's lots of tools that you can utilize on a day-to-day basis, because we at Nexus, we hold these video calls through Microsoft Teams at least once or twice a week, especially through this, this trialing time, right? But from a technology perspective, this is one of the keys to staying connected day to day is just having the tools and resources and security in place, which I think Earl's probably better set to talk through the actual security piece than I am, but I think it's a good example to show you what the reality of this could look like as it is for me today.
And Earl, how do you address those security issues? Many people are using, of course, their home internet because that's where they are. Their kids are using it for schoolwork. They're streaming videos. There's all these different things to think about and to consider when you're talking about security as well as technology implications when working from home.
Yeah, there's a ton of considerations, and not only security, which I want to certainly get to, but performance as well. Most organizations have had some semblance of a remote workforce for some time, or at least enabled specific individuals within their organization to work remote. And so they've had some technologies in place to enable that, but those technologies generally have been for a smaller select group of people. And so now that they've suddenly sent everybody home, and everybody now needs to get on the phone system via remote, and everybody needs to get on the VPN and access their computers via remote, and get to company resources and data, they're finding that their resources are oversaturated. They weren't designed for the current loads, nor were many of their workers. You mentioned it, but basically their home internet connections weren't necessarily designed to deal with the load that is currently being experienced. When you have kids doing homework or gaming, at home in the middle of the day while mom and dad are on the on their computer and connected to the office and trying to get work done. But it's not only that; it's all of the remote work tools that we're dealing with that weren't really prepared for it, nor the internet service providers. Suddenly, there's a massive new load of traffic that's being placed on internet service providers, on tools such as Office 365 or Teams or Zoom or Skype like we're using right now. And they weren't really prepared for it. And in the beginning days, there was a lot of problems with it. But coming back to, I guess, your question, and that is, there are many considerations to keep an organization and their data secure and compliant. So there's a lot of companies, in fact, most of our companies now, the reality is that we fall under some sort of data security compliance regulation. And there's been this new haphazard way of going home and doing business, of just grab whatever device that you have that's that you can potentially use to get connected, and let's try to do work. And that exposes businesses, to a significant level to potential infections, to breaches. When you're using the family computer that the kids use to surf the internet and game on, the likelihood that computer could become infected, and that infection has a worm that could spread to your corporate network and compromise your data, or allow a hacker, in through a back door, is significantly high. And so
it really is. There's so many things to think about as employers, as you consider your employees working at home. They didn't really have time to adjust. There's a huge laundry list, as we mentioned at the beginning of this interview, of things to consider. And there's always different things. Internet connections don't always work as you want them to. But Nexus IT, they are here for you. They will help your company. They'll work with you through these considerations, help you make things work while your employees are home. So make sure you head to their website, nexusitc.net, and get more information. And thanks to Travis and Earl for joining us today. We have more coming up, coronavirus and mental health, right after this.